Okay, call to order. Start off with our January 24th board meeting. The adoption of the regular board meeting minutes. As you notice, for trustees and for the public, that the motions are broken into two, one for the November 22nd meeting, one for the December 6th meeting. The reason for that is simply that not all trustees were present or sworn in by the 22nd, so only those who actually attended the 22nd can vote on that, and that really comes down to just two trustees who were there. So may I have a motion?
I will move to.
And I have to second that, and then we need to vote on that. It's procedurally awkward, but we need to go through. So that motion is passed. Can I have a motion for the December 6th?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Adoption of today's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. The board did have an in-camera meeting from 6 until 7 this evening. And just prior to inviting the delegation to speak, I just want to turn to Sherry for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I could just extend a bit of a welcome to a new member of the senior management team to invite him to speak a little bit in a minute, but we'd like to welcome to you as the public and our staff. Those of you who don't know, Ian Hesselgrave is the new Director of Operations. Ian started with us in January and has already been out and about in the school district and has been at several schools. But I'm just going to ask Ian to maybe just share a few, you didn't know this until about a minute and a half ago, just a little bit about his background and how he came to us at the school district, what his previous experiences were, and maybe a highlight or so from your first couple weeks.
Okay. Thanks, Sherry. It was a bit of a surprise from her, which is probably good because she didn't want me to talk for too long. I have been here, I guess it's 3 weeks and a day or something, and I've lived in the Valley for the past 17 years and have two kids in the school system, one in high school and one in elementary school. So I feel like I have a real vested interest in the system. I had great positive experiences, and in fact, there might be one or two of my kids' teachers in the room right now. So Eva Bray and I go back quite a way. She had my son twice. So
Different years, I hope.
A couple of times around. But I came here via the airport. I spent the last 9 years working at the airport as the operations manager and saw some great changes there and within the Comox Valley. Coming here has been eye-opening, interesting, exciting, fun every day, and a broad scope. You know, there's an awful lot of duties I didn't know fell under me that do, and so that's been interesting. I think those were held back for good reason. And you know, it's my aim to get out to all the schools, visit with the staff, visit with the principals, and see what's needed. I've probably hit a half a dozen so far. And you know, there's a bit of a range in age and vintage and needs, and you know, it's my job to get a good catalog of those and provide some support and assistance. And along the way as well, I have responsibility for the maintenance staff and the custodial staff that many of you interact with on a daily basis, and our goal is to keep the buildings looking as good as possible and in as great shape as possible as well. So I'd like to thank the board and the superintendent and all others for the great welcome I've had and for some really interesting days.
And we're thrilled to have him. He's had snow, wind, Colorado, his front page of the paper in the first 3 weeks. He's coming back every day. Always a good thing. So we're thrilled to have him.
So thank you. The board received a request from the president of the CDTA, Steve Stanley, to come and opportunity to speak and welcome the new board and each new trustee, and we can turn it over to Steve. Welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that I'm here representing the teachers in Comox Valley, and we want to, first of all, extend a welcome to the new board. We want to wish you well for the next 3 years, and we want to say that we value the experience and value that you're going to contribute to the district. And we have a little gift for you to start you off your 3-year career. And I also want you to not forget that we're out here, we're on job action this year, and whatever influence you have, you can exert that around negotiated settlement. That would be much appreciated.
Thank you.
And it's an apple.
It's an apple.
Nice. Bring them to you. A sweet apple.
Oh, I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
On behalf of the trustees, thank you very much, Steve Benbar, and your association. We'll move to management report.
Through you, Chairperson, people have in front of you the good news. We'd like to start every board meeting with the good news, and our biggest issue is that we're only allowed one double-sided page. I'm always cut off because there's so many good things to talk about. We are in the mid-year point of the school year as secondary schools wind down from one semester and moving into the second, and certainly at a halfway point for elementary on some projects and the beginning of new ones. What we have highlighted for you, and I'm not going to be disrespectful and read it to you, are just a sampling of the things that are underway, either coming to culmination or after a number of years of hard work. For example, the IB certification at Highland, but also some of the things that are new beginnings. And so if I would just do, and in no disrespect to the others that are on the page, just highlight for you some of the things that I have had some personal connection with and just was astounded at the impact that they had in their school. So I'll highlight for you the CSI class at Vanier. If you didn't get a chance to see the Czech news item that was last week, I think it was, when the reporters were out, the TV reporters were out and filming the school principal murdered. I loved it. It was Charlie at his best because he was face down. And I said, you died on a sheet? Like, how helpful was that? Because he had his fancy shirt and tie on. But what a great experience for the students at Vanier. It's been so successful that we've already been able to get enough student interest to offer the course again. But it's a combination of English and chemistry. The students are getting curriculum in from both, and they're doing it in a multi-faceted kind of way. So sometimes they're spending time on the English curriculum, and very often they're showing their knowledge of the English curriculum through a chemistry project. It is engaging for them. They are excited about it. They're having fun. And teachers are reporting that the students are just soaking it up and asking for more. It speaks to learning that happens for students when they're involved and when it's hands-on in many ways, or when they understand the relevancy of what they're learning. And it's our hope that we can support many more of those kind of initiatives in both elementary and secondary. So if you haven't had a chance, on our website is the link to the little TV blurb. It's worth 2 minutes to have a look at it, and just kudos to Vanier for risk-taking, which we're encouraging, and for the two teachers who are doing an amazing job of taking what would appear to be two very diverse curriculums and blending them together in a way that students are loving. So that's one that I would just point out. And then Miracle Beach is starting their home reading program, and it's a program that is designed for to allow students to have books at home. And we take for granted in our literacy notions, as educators, that all students, sometimes we take for granted that all students have access to reading at home. And they do, hopefully for the most part, but they don't sometimes because there aren't books that are age appropriate for them at home. Or maybe an adult who's not really comfortable to read, doesn't really know how to begin that process for them. And so that it just doesn't happen in the way that we know it can help students sustain their reading levels. So Miracle Beach is following a program that was it's 2 years now at Coppotters Park, where they take their little book bags home. And the idea is that students can choose books from a whole series of themes, dinosaurs, as they say, hockey, and they take their little book bags home. They've got them for a week. They work with their parents. They're guided a little bit about how they make choices, so there will be some books within their reading ability level, and some books that are just about either the visuals or the excitement that the child has because they picked that book up. It might be this thick and they're in grade 2. But it's the idea that we don't lose that kinesthetic touch with text in a technology age. And so we're thrilled to help support that. We're thrilled that this is another elementary school that's taking this on, and I think you'll see that what we saw at Coppotters Park was a huge engagement in reading in the school community, and we're expecting to see the same thing in Miracle Beach. So those are just 2 items that are off the page that I'd like to bring. Many, many more that we don't ever have the time to share.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from trustees? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Secretary Treasurer's report.
Just a matter of housekeeping. The actual bylaw that I'm going to be presenting to you, if you have a pen prepared, how we're going to change it. But basically, I'm just inserting a word between the word project and bylaw, and it'll read amendment. And then after the number 126160-C will become the bylaw. And just so you know, basically this is a revision 3 of the bylaw. I'll speak to what the funds are for in a moment. But just by way of clarification on the 3 readings of the bylaw, why that is in place is in the case of many matters of property, for example, of some of the major decisions that you'll come across, there's a moment of reflection, which means you'll have 2 readings, and then unless approved unanimously, you'll have the 3rd and final reading of the bylaw on a separate day. And again, it's basically to allow for pause of the decision-making process. In matters of finance, you're allowed to read them all in one sitting because they're basically more housekeeping than they are a decision of any magnitude. That's why you're seeing it in this format, 1, 2, and 3 all in one night. Okay, so that sounds right. So before you is basically a revision to the bylaw. This is basically revision 3. So the ministry undertook, as we may or may not be aware, undertook a full-day kindergarten modular program in May 2010 approximately, and shortly thereafter they required or requested, and we submitted estimates on that. And that was the basis of the original funding. Later, as we got closer to the date of delivery of these portables, we updated some of our estimates. We added some costs for electrical needs, upgrading our electrical to a 220 volt versus a 120, or I think it's a 120 sort of thing. Again, moving along between January and June as we were getting more information from the ministry on the type of modulars that were going to get in place. We basically updated our estimates and built the project scope to include sewer and water connections. So over the course of those discussions with the ministry, they basically allowed us to do that, which when we were dealing with portables, we hadn't built into the estimates. So under normal circumstances, when we put portables in place, when we were sort of hit with the bill ourselves, we didn't do that kind of a service. With these modulars, it allowed us to go one step further to make them more permanent. So over the course of the delivery and install, we were able to do these additional basically take on these extra costs, knowing that the ministry was going to eventually fund it in full. So the revision 2, or B, that was on the books as of May 2000, sorry, I think the final reading was November 2011. It was 2.6 million. So this bylaw is increasing the bylaw by 427,000, which includes the additional costs of, like I said, the siting costs, the extra connections and that sort of thing that the ministry has committed and did commit to fully fund for this project. So again, before you is the bylaw. We're now at $3,035,119 that I'm asking for approval on. Any questions?
Any questions, or entertain the reading of the first?
I move that School District 71 Comox Valley Capital Project Amendment Bylaw Number 126160-C, point C, in the amount of $3,035,119 receive its first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Entertain a second reading?
That School District 71 Comox Valley Capital Project Amendment Bylaw Number 126160-C in the amount of $3,035,119 receive its second reading.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Entertain a third reading?
That School District Number 71, Comox Valley Capital Project Amendment Bylaw 126160C in the amount of $3,035,119 receive its third and final reading.
Second.
Any discussion? None, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Move on to Human Resources.
Okay, on page 6 are the list of retirement and resignation, and I've been asked to read them one at a time to acknowledge these folks, so please bear with me. So first we have Marty Maxwell, a speech language pathologist in student services, will retire February 29th after 23 years of service for the district. Liam Bishop, FSL teacher at Marcus Feld, will retire January 31st after 32 years of service for the district. Barb Angel, learning support teacher at Aspen Park, will retire June 30th after 22 years of service. Randy Meyer, math teacher at Highland, will retire effective January 31st after 17 years of service with the district. Gordon Funk, teacher at grade 4 at Aspen Park, will retire March 31st after 22 years of service with the district. Jeff Crane, math teacher at Cumberland Junior, will retire February 29th after 34 years of service with the district. And Jackie Green, long-term teacher with the district, has retired September 30th after 30 years of service with the district. And also have 2 resignations of people on leave that decide to resign instead of coming back. So all those teachers, long service teachers, will be acknowledged at the retirement function of the board in June 2012.
With the retirements in and of themselves, it's about 180 years worth of teaching.
Yes. Congratulations to all.
So thank you. Any comments or questions? Thank you, Linda Marie.
Motion to receive matches report.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Board committee reports. Mr. Grimm, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee had its first meeting of the board for the committee on January the 13th. In addition to both myself and Peter, we invited Trustee Gamacorda to attend with us, just so that she had an opportunity to see how the Finance Committee was working. Our Acting Secretary-Treasurer provided us with an overview of the 2011-2012 budget, which you will see next month as an amended budget. And he provided us with percentage indicators on a number of items, all the items there, where they're sitting on the budget. Obviously, there are some which are quite high because, as an example, fees are paid out at the beginning of a year, so you're paying almost 100%. So that would be reflected as already being costed out. Where others, the one that was transportation, as an example, it's about 48% of the annual cost, but we still haven't received the gas supplement for the year, so we'll expect that in the next month or so. And with gas prices, which have been going up in the last little while, we might take a little bit of a hit there. On the back of the report, you will notice we've laid out budget timelines. It's basically a working draft. There's no need for an approval of it. You'll notice there's a couple of dates that are still missing, and it's a matter of coordinating with our management team in order to fill those out. One of the things that was not on here, but we would like to ask staff to do is recognizing the public process. Our experience in the past, or my experience in the past, has been that the public process has been somewhat weak, and perhaps to facilitate more response from the public is put a link on our school district website where the public can raise comments on the budget process, and certainly as a committee we'll review those prior to each of our meetings. So if I could just ask for direction to senior staff to make sure that happens, and we'll publicize that in the website.
I see a nodding of heads. So
Yes.
good to go.
And Mr. Chair, that's my report.
Thank you very much. Policy Advisory Committee,
Hopefully in February.
we have a February 7th meeting day. Thank you, Paula. And the Education Committee,
The Education Committee normally is held the second Tuesday of each month. In light of the fact that we're a new board, we felt that the first couple of meetings should be dealt with board governance, looking at getting to know the district and having a conversation. So the Education Committee meetings will reconvene hopefully in the next few months. But as a board, we want to get to know the district and sit down and have a conversation and look forward. So they're being held with the board and senior management for the next little while.
thank you. I have a motion to receive.
Motion to receive committee reports.
Second.
All those in favor? And that's passed. Board appointees to other bodies and committee structures, the BC School Trustees Association, Academy. Janice?
I did include a written briefing report that all of us went, so if anybody wants to add to that, they're more than welcome to add to that. I think it was a great informational session, a lot of new things we learned, and anybody wants to add to that, they're more than welcome to add to my 2 cents worth.
Any comments?
I agree with Janice. It was a great conference, and Dr. Stephen Murgatroyd mentioned frequently that he wasn't there to promote his book, but he did. It did seem like it might be an interesting book for us to circulate with the board and our staff. He was very inspiring.
Any comments from the new trustees? I thought that was the first academy that you had been to. Sorry, I'm not outing you.
Thought it was very well run and very useful.
I thoroughly enjoyed Dr. Piper and Dr. Murgatroyd. They were both really amazing speakers. Yeah.
Thank you. We have nothing under new business. We have correspondence on page 10. And just to sort of speak to why it's an October 7th letter and it's only appearing on the January agenda, is that it was deferred when it first appeared on the October 25th board agenda to the first regular board meeting of the new board. And so I trust trustees have had an opportunity to read Steve Stanley's letter to the district or to the trustees, and sort of invite any discussion or comments at this time. Janice?
So I would like the board to consider sending this letter to the Finance Committee, and the reason I'm suggesting that is because one of the points in here was looking at allocating money towards the class size and composition and staffing, and I think that part of the budget and part of our planning process to look at all avenues and all correspondence, and I think this fits in discussion in our budget and our planning, that's my opinion. So I'd like the board to consider that. Actually, I'll make the motion that we refer this letter to the Finance Committee to be part of the conversation and discussion with regard to the budget for next year, as they're asking for money to support the classes.
Second.
Any discussion? Kirk?
Yes. Obviously, this is not just unique to the school district. It's a provincially wide issue. I'm sure that the Finance Committee would be happy to review this, but there has to be some care. As if you add to one thing, you have to take away from another. So, just so that everybody's cognizant of the fact that there is just X number of dollars, and we have to balance that. So, as long as you're aware of that, then we should be okay.
So could I just ask for clarification? So my understanding of the motion is that it be brought to finance and be part of the broader discussion
Yes.
around budget.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. Since no further discussion, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
I took that as discussion and motion. I did have another comment I'd like to make about the general discussion.
Please.
I think that I wanted to discuss this, and I know that Janice does as well, in the context of student achievement. And we haven't had lots of discussion about student achievement in the past, and I know that all of us do want to focus a lot. It came up at the BCSTA that all of us really wanted to evaluate our own contributions as trustees in terms of student participation, engagement, and student achievement. And so there are some really interesting issues about whether class size, whether our classes and whether our resources are enough and are appropriate for student learning. And within our budget, I think we all agree that within the budget given from the school district, probably not. But there are some, as part of the 21st Century Learning Initiatives too, there are some parts of that puzzle in the changing relationships that, especially at the secondary level, might move away from strict ratios of around class size. But we still have to be able to gauge the relationship of teachers and teams of teachers working with groups of children, and how appropriate they are, and how they then are translated into achievement. So I'm hoping, and taking the spirit of this letter in terms of our need to ensure that the situations for learning and the resources are there for all our students, that we will, as soon as it seems reasonable to senior management, we will start having some really solid discussions about student achievement and about how we're using our resources, which would feed into budgeting, in a really, really major way to drive our work at this time over the next year. So that's my reading of this letter, was to translate it into a need to have a really in-depth and ongoing discussion about student achievement. I think this, to me, suggests a need to do a really significant secondary programs review, and it needs, for me, to involve a look at our school growth plans, whether we need to develop a new process or whether we need to make sure that all those growth plan processes are working really well so that they are really driving where we put our resources to meet student achievement. And that ties in with these questions about appropriateness of the learning that we provide. So I'm really anxious to get within given extremely difficult conditions for our management right now.
Any additional comments?
Yeah, I seconded the motion because there is reference to the surplus, and it seems to me that the first job of the Finance Committee will be to see if we can find more money to improve the instructional program. If we can, then of course everything that Julie just said comes into play. If we can't, then maybe it doesn't. But the immediate problem, it seems to me, is to see what money we can find. So that's why I seconded the motion.
And the motion is passed.
And just an annote to what Sheila was talking about, part of the conversation we'll have regarding our governance and our education committees will deal exactly what you're talking about, is having those conversations. So I think we are looking forward to having that. It's just one step at a time in supporting our students in these economic times that we're given by the ministry these days.
Yeah, I think it's also important to understand, I don't think it's the intent of the Finance Committee or of the board to squirrel away any money. I think we need to do is just trying to balance the budget much closer to a 0-0. We don't want a deficit, but we don't want a surplus as well. We want to make sure that the funds that are allocated by the Ministry of Education for public education are spent on public education for that year, even though there are some unforeseen costs at times, and the Secretary Treasurer and that staff have to sort of balance that all off. But at the same time, I want to assure the board, I believe it's the intent of the Finance Committee to make sure that we come to almost 0-0, so that we're not putting money away for a rainy day. Because personally, I think that we have an onus to the students of the school district to make sure that they get the benefit of the funding that's provided for that year.
Putting away money for a rainy day would mean we'd be spending it every day.
Well, if you consider the weather in the last little while, that may be a statement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before I move to question and inquiries, I just have one statement and one request. The first statement is, I hope nobody gets used to thinking that we're going to have half-hour board meetings. Normally, so no one can get comfortable with that. And I would ask, as part of the question and inquiries, and this is a request as opposed to a demand, and I appreciate that sometimes folks want to provide a little bit of context for their questions, but I would ask respectfully to start with the question, because then, as trustees, we have an idea of where you're going to with the additional comments that you may make. Again, it's a request as opposed to demand. So, question and inquiries, and I'll start with the media. And then in general? Janice?
I have a question regarding the budget timelines. So this is all new information to us. There's been no communication on this. Can I assume that the budget advisory committee format has been abandoned?
Actually, it would probably be the best answer to come from the acting secretary and the chair of finance.
Go ahead.
Correct. I think based on a lot of the conversations we've had over the last 6 to 8 months about the BAC process, and we've had, just to put it in context, the BAC, the Budget Advisory Committee, was formed 2 years ago, so they've had 2 years of committee work, and there were a lot of discussions at the table on terms of reference, and basically 24 months of discussions, good discussions, appropriate discussions, but there was a lot of concern whether or not the Budget Advisory Committee had any teeth, for lack of a better word. So just through discussions with obviously the board, the new board, and the chair and that kind of thing, basically it came to looking at a better format for the budget process. And it now begins with finance, and sort of there's obviously an effort now to look at the committee work and look at the committees and see how they can better manage the work that they would naturally do. So the budget, or the work of the budget is now basically, it is the work of the finance committee. And so it'll be the work of the finance committee to shepherd that process along. You hear that?
No. That's good.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Certainly.
Or a couple of follow-up questions? So just to clarify, there's no representation from any partner groups on the finance committee, correct?
We will be having discussions, and you'll notice in here there's discussions with partner groups in March. So each of the partner groups will be invited to come and make presentations in regards to the budget process, and we'll be providing you with the documentation prior to those meetings, so that QP and CDTF, etc., senior management will all have an opportunity to take a look at that and bring proposals forward. So we'll give you the draft of the budget plus some other documentation, so that we can have a comprehensive discussion about where the budget's going.
Yeah, this is by no means, we're certainly not saying that we're not meeting. Absolutely, there will be a new method. Basically, is really what it comes down. And what you're basically seeing is a better approach to getting and soliciting the information from the partner groups. Whether it's at the priority side or whether it's at the budget proposals and the review process kind of thing, there will be an opportunity for the partner groups to obviously have access to the budget process.
Sure.
Just for clarification, Janice, historically, well, there haven't been representatives on the finance committee. It's a standing committee of the board, and it has been usually 2 trustees, an alternate, and then senior staff that are connected usually to finance, and sometimes the superintendent of the day and sometimes not.
So it has never been representatives at a standing committee on finance. The difference here is that we heard loud and clear for the last 2 years from the partner groups that the Budget Advisory Committee, which was an ad hoc committee of the board, wasn't successful for all kinds of reasons. There was dissatisfaction across the board with the ability for folks to get the information that they wanted out and whatever. So in looking at that, what has happened is this Finance Committee has reconnected to the work of budgeting as opposed to it happening outside of Finance Committee. And so one of their first major tasks is to steward the management of the budgeting process. Doesn't mean that the partner groups won't have their opportunities to influence and advise that budgeting process. It means that Finance Committee reconnected to budget will complete this process and then for the rest of the year go on and manage and steward the other financial operations of the district. Whereas for 2 years in a row, the Board of the Day tried a different process, which was to disconnect Finance Committee from the budgeting process. So it almost became a standalone process, and it didn't work for anybody. And so here we are back to what has historically been the work of Finance Committee, which is the budgeting process. There will still be opportunities for partner groups to advise and to share their influence on that.
I'll look forward to the forecast, and I just hope that the discussions with the partner groups isn't on March the 28th.
Is that like spring break or something?
Well, it's the day after the board meeting.
All right. No, we won't be anywhere near that.
So, straight back to you.
Just a question to the chair and then to the rest of the trustees, perhaps. Disappointed to hear that you're referring everything that is in my letter to the Finance Committee, because that sounds like it's going to be part of the management, and you're going to look at the budget and then make recommendations for next year. I just want to remind the trustees that this year's only half over. The next year at secondary school starts next week. For kids in elementary school, there's still lots of time to make a difference. Is there anything you can do now? That's my question. Let's not wait. We had a $2 million surplus last year in the operating budget. We know that budgeting this year, at least, was looking for trying to be conservative. Is there anything we can do now? Or is there any way that you can initiate some kind of process to support the kids who are struggling now instead of waiting for next year?
I guess how I had interpreted the motion going to the Finance Committee is that it's a piece of work that arrives there now and is reviewed in the context of as much now as it is for the future. So the short answer is yes, that it is something that could be looked at. Is that consistent with your sense, Mr. Curran?
Yes, but the surplus isn't what it was last year. Like right now, I think it's about $500,000.
So my question takes on a bit to Steve, because you've answered that part. My question is, will this board find a way to have a voice outside of this room regarding the chronic underfunding in education in BC? And I think, as Steve pointed out with the letter, when it was written back in October, we were really looking for some support now. Certainly down the road as well. But, so my question is, will you be looking for other ways to voice your concern, or are you concerned about underfunding?
I think the trustees present and past have always spoken to the issue about funding. I think this board, in fairness to its newness, needs to develop its own path as to how it pursues that, and would imagine that it would be very much part of our ongoing conversations in the near future as opposed to the distant future. But I can't state today we are doing A, B, C, and D, because that opportunity hasn't been made available to us yet. Yes, I know you will. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? And that's passed. Thank you.